welcome. This is the AI BoF. The idea here is not to do any ripe work or whatsoever. The idea here is to stop the side conversations, Herr Koch and Herr Wahl. And the idea is that we just have a chat about a very hot topic at the moment and how it might affect, especially how it might affect our work. There's no intention to propose any work for RIPE. There's just an intention to have a hopefully entertaining and enlightening exchange of views, and everybody learns something from it, and maybe relativize a little bit the hype that's going on. The format will be every speaker gets 2 minutes. It's on this clock. And after 2 minutes, it goes beep. And I will ask the AV people to actually turn off your microphone after the 2 minutes. We'll be anal about this. And then we can have 2 minutes of discussion. I would like to ask you to give the microphone to anyone that you have, and after you have spoken to anyone who might have a question or some point of discussion, and it should be discussion related to what has been said, not another statement. If you want another statement, you wait for your turn. The turn is done by the microphone, so when you're finished speaking, you're supposed to give it to someone who raises their hand and wants it. And so we want to keep the pace in this. I had announced that this would be on Chatham House rules, so nobody says it's not recorded and nobody says who said what. But I have been told by the chair that there was a misunderstanding. RIPE stuff in the agenda is always recorded and no secrets. So be aware that we are recording this, and if you would like to mention who you are, but be aware that what you say here will not stay in this room. Yeah. Any questions? Well, then we start. Number one, Toma, your 2 minutes start now.
Right. Thank you. Toma Gavrichenko, Protsellers.com. So speaking of my experience with what is supposed to be called AIs, I've been playing with Copilot last year with ChatGPT, GPT-4 for the last like 6 months, something. And one day I was playing with an implementation of a DNS resolver. The other day I was playing with IPv6 implementation in a kernel. And I thought that would be great if like ChatGPT would suggest, like I don't memorize RFCs, right? So I asked GPT-4 to suggest like which RFC mandates some specific behavior. And I was stopped too early, I think. Thanks. Right. So I asked GPT-4 about some particular things in the implementation, and do you know how useful ChatGPT was in pointing me to in the right direction to RFCs? Completely useless. It lied to me 7 out of 7 times. It made things up. It just wrote RFCs on fly based on nothing, like quoted them out of the thin air, and was completely useless. But the point is, if it's so good at writing RFCs, maybe we should use that for that. And I made sure before that all the ITF people are in the other room, you know. But yeah, but maybe like RFC is a long text, like walls of text. Maybe we could just use neural network to assist us in writing protocol details. That was my take on that.
Okay, any discussion? No? Okay. Yeah, Stefan.
I would throw it to you. So you say this is one way, you write the RFC, but then there are committees who choose the RFCs and comment on it and so on. You should have there also these chatbots, these ChatGPT. So I would say...
Completely take
everything which a technocrat could actually do, ChatGPT can do better. So that's my statement. ChatGPT on both ends. And in the middle. Daniel, what's up?
Yeah, well, we had a little problem with the clock. So next.
Me?
No.
Can you hear me? Does it work now?
Yes, it works.
Has the battery. Okay, Jan George. So we have been dreaming of building networks and running networks that are self-healing, that are, you know, running by themselves. We've been all writing scripts to detect errors and all this stuff. And now there is a big hope that with AI, we just say to AI, please run my network, fix everything, troubleshoot, do everything. You probably all met Ivan Pepelnjak, PP. He's my old friend from Slovenia. And a long time ago at one of our meetings, he said that automation is all about making our errors consistent across the network. So now, with AI, do we want to make consistent errors that are not even ours? That's what I wanted to say.
Discussion? No?
Yeah, I can basically, I will do two things at the same time, reply to him and make my own point. So basically, I've been dabbling in network measurement for quite some time, and I've been on the program committee for RAPE on some time. And what we see is that we get a bunch of things out there that want to predict, for example, BGP anomalies via AI. Those products are out there. And we see a lot of things already going wrong consistently in networks. And the problem with this is, and I'm really curious if anyone in this room is actually using something like that on their production networks, and if you feel worried about that those are mostly black box approaches that will in partly affect your entire routing system, and you really don't know how it comes to their decisions. And I think this is one of the part of the large language model problem, but also neural networks and the AI that we have for a while, that we have very, very bad ideas how to actually understand how it came to their decisions. It is worthwhile looking at ongoing research of that at the moment, because they are trying to get there, but the products that we have out there are basically black boxes.
Yep, thank you.
Comment. In Germany, one photographer sued a company training networks to pictures. You have heard of it. And the court decided that the company has now to strip the pictures from the AI systems. And actually, no actual LLM systems. Actually, nobody knows how to do this.
I'll start the training again without that picture in it.
And going on here, it's just, AI is a very old technology. If you look at it, it's 6-7 years old. And remember, some people here in the room will remember that 7 years ago, these systems were fascistic systems. They were really ugly in using words and racism. So I think they worked 5 years to train the systems not to be ugly again. And I think we are now at the point where we actually can use the system without offending people. I think that's the trick. But what can I start with my point?
Okay, fine.
I do not need 2 microphones, thank you. Redundancy.
So, before you do that, Stefan, if the next person who wants to speak gets the microphone from Jan.
Okay. So the first time I've seen the ChatGPT was it 4.0 or 3.5 presentation from the CEO of the company, OpenAI. At the second half, he presented that he has his text. He has prepared his text and had the questions, and they fed the ChatGPT system with the textbooks from the US government. And then he asked questions, how much money he will get back and how to, which number to put in which field in the formulas. And actually the system decided that he will get back $8,000, something like that, and could explain why. And that was really nice. And I thought about the German tax system and thought that would be a really interesting thing if we now would have a system where your tax is done by such a large language model, LLM thing, and then it goes to the government, which runs also a large language model, which actually checks if the first language model has done it the right way. And then they talk to each other, and such a thing you would have it maybe in 2 or 3 minutes back. Also the money on your account or stripped off your account if you have to pay something there. And that's the thing with the large language models. In my opinion, they are very good if you have a lot of rules which you can feed into it, and then they are brilliant. And that's for me from a statement. And then there is a comment.
Yeah, so Alistair Woodman, I think your suggestion's useful about getting the large language models to do work for you, but the Swedes have already solved this problem for their tax reporting stuff. They have all the data always, and they just send you an SMS message and say, this is your tax thing, do you agree or not? Yeah, no, you can have it, but agreed. But this is already and the Swedes don't have a large language model in the middle. They just didn't push the work onto you as the subscriber, right? So that's a policy of the Swedish government to not cause anger and annoyance for their customers and consumers, which is not the case in Germany, the US, and other places where we all have to do lots of silly work just for
order, because this is not about AI.
Oh, in a way, it's about AI, the answer. You know why we have the system in Germany? You ever thought of how many people work in this area? It's 200 to 400,000 people workforce, which they would have to lay off, and that would cost billions of euros.
Arbeitsbeschaffungsmaßnahmen, exactly.
Exactly. Is this the same in Sweden?
No, they can use their bureaucrats for different purposes. They already figured that out.
We stop it here, I think.
Okay, next. Oh, Carsten yep, go ahead, Carsten.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes.
Fantastic. Greetings from Berlin. The point I wanted to make is that from my point of view, in terms of when we look at artificial intelligences, we need to keep even a big eye on the double exponentiality, I would like to call it. That is, first of all, possibly the algorithms will get better. And secondly, also the hardware underneath where the algorithms would be run on would also get better, possibly in an exponential way. And this I'd like to call as double exponentiality. And humans, on the other hand, are very, very bad in understanding exponentiality. And so, looking at this from this point of view, I'm slightly concerned, put it this way, that we would be in a position, or are creating right now already, a system that we don't understand because of that double exponentiality, and that might get out of hand if not being looked after very carefully. That's my first contribution to the discussion you guys we are actually having right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Carsten. Stefan again.
Sorry, Carsten, you're partly right, but if you look at the press releases from OpenAI in the last weeks, they say that it's now time not to make the language models bigger. They say we need smaller models, more specialized models, which can run, and yes, you said it, on mobile phones as an example, to give them a broader base inside the communities. So the large language models will not really get bigger at the moment.
Okay, from the chat monitor.
Can I directly answer?
Yeah, you got 1 minute 26 seconds.
Okay. Uh, in that regard, yeah, you're right. Possibly Open AI will do that. On the other hand, I would assume that quite a bit of the code is already out in the wild via GitHub, for example. So there might be other actors that are not yet known just taking that code and who would not restrict themselves to having smaller models and so forth, what you have just said, but would just continue this kind of approach in creating larger models as we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Carsten. Chat monitor?
Not chat monitor, it's Robert from the NCC, personal opinion.
Oh.
I'm also pessimistic in general about AI, but there could be a bright side, in particular in this group of people. Imagine that your network has a problem all of a sudden, and you can ask an agent, let's call it AI, that says, I've heard something is going wrong. What did you see? And then the answer is, yeah, your pings just increased between X and Y, your router, something went down, go there and fix it. So there's this concept of the Centaur, where the human is assisted by AI. AI doesn't tell you what to do. That's the reverse of what Centaur side. But instead, when you know that you have a specific question and you need an answer for that, AI can help. And we can quibble over whether that's AI or machine learning or just a nice monitoring tool. But I do see a positive scenario in this, where you say, my latency is off the charts. What's happened? And this assistant, AI, whatever we call it, will go out and collect the data and says, based on what I gather, this is your problem. I think that's a positive case here.
Okay, reactions to that? Vesna?
I actually have a reaction to the previous point by Stefan and Carsten. I see a danger, of the processes of centralization and the capture of AI by the existing monopolies in big tech, rather than what you suggested as democratization, and they won't become very big. They are already very big, and the previous history of other technologies that we have, including internet, actually shows that this usually goes in the direction of centralization and consolidation, which for me is already a big problem. And then I want to come to other topics later.
Okay, thank you, Vesna.
Can I directly comment on
Stefan, can you just stop 1 second? I just want to say, I do not have to know your first name for you to speak. This is not a discussion between just people I know. We really want, the reason why I do this thing with the clock is I want to give people the opportunity to, even if it's only one short thought or something, to say it and to open the discussion to people who are usually quiet here. So if I call people by first name, it's just an expedience. It's not like making the group closed. Stefan.
It's a very short answer, Vesna. You're right, there's a danger. We have seen this with big data as an example, which is not a nice development. But we see AI models, or people call it AI models, we say LLMs. You train the systems with your personal data or company data, and you're not interested other companies see this data. So at the end, what you want is actually run it locally. So I do not see that there can be a risk, yes, but it can also be a big advantage that you actually share your library in a language module. That's actually my point. And then, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
I have a comment, a small one, Robin. Just as a personal opinion, I work at the RAPID. That is, I'm in my free time building at home a small cluster for machine learning, for inference, not for training. And I see the opportunity of doing that and it was the main reason why doing that, to not leak your data to some external company and basically keep that in a secure way. The problem is the power consumption and the cost of doing that. There are benefits. It's cheaper. It's way, way cheaper to run it at home. The negative side is there's the likelihood that you cannot afford at the market price the good GPUs, and they cost a lot. And the benefit is they are better. Negative effect is when you don't have enough money, you will consume a lot of energy. And for me, it's 9 washing machines in my living room. That's like a lot of energy just for running one large language model, barely. But with this decrease in size that we are targeting in the large language models and improving matrix multiplication to make it run faster and more efficient, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Brian Reiter, 5 Nine Networks. So I was just going to reply to business comment and discussion about the generalization of AI. So that is, I don't know if anybody saw it. So a couple of weeks ago, there was a leaked memo from Google where they were stating actually that they would never be able to get a sufficient advantage in AI technology over the community-driven efforts, because they see the rise of a lot of small AI projects which are comparable with results with the existing, let's call them centralized or private AI endeavors.
Okay, and your point about that?
No, I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be centralized, and basically the Google thinks it will be decentralized in the future.
Okay, thank you. Andrei?
Andrei Robachevsky. Well, I think as any new technology, although someone mentioned it's not as new, it comes with a bag of good stuff and bad stuff, and it's hard to say how those bags, sort of the sizes will develop. I think would be useful to see what processes this new technology sort of, speeds up. And I agree with Vesna. One of the things that it will probably speed up is consolidation in big tech, because it's based on data and concentration of data and concentration of computing power as well. I also wonder, I think I was excited by the framing of this discussion, how that will impact this community. That's very interesting. I can imagine that maybe half the content of RIPE meetings could be AI generated, and so we can sort of spend our coffee breaks without putting much burden on presenters. But that's a joke, of course, a kind joke. I enjoy this content very much, but I think it would be interesting to see, not just, speculate about AI, but talk about us as the community in this new AI world.
Thank you.
Yeah,
over here.
Hi, I'm Kurt. We are all fascinated by technology, and as humans, we like to make technology better. But I think we're getting scared once technology gets better as us, and then it gets dangerous if you let technology do things. As we heard today morning, liability for software is a topic. And once ChatGPT or some other AI gets into a decision phase and they do things, who was it at the end? Because everybody tolerates human error. And that won't be human error at the end anymore. But nobody's then liable and nobody did it?
Okay, okay.
Just a quick follow-up, but we already have that with software these days. I mean, if things fail, people say, oh, computer says no. So this will be just a continuation.
Okay, here, Jörg is my name. And just a comment to the red guy here in the front, I don't remember his name, regarding detection of errors. It's, sorry, yes, you.
His name is Robert.
So thanks, sorry. Detection of errors is one cool thing. So for networking and complex environments, and the Kubernetes world, so also infrastructure, but I know it's a controversial topic. They are also trying to optimize on pre-error conditions already to optimize scheduling and so on. So there are projects for that. So that might be quite helpful for the networking things. And also, so it might be applicable.
Yes, I want to bring up two topics. I wonder how you're keeping track of all of this that we're saying, but two big concerns or areas of concerns for me are the wasteful use of energy and water and materials spent for building and running these big computational systems. And there has been a labs article published last week about this. So there is a lot of research already done about it. So that's one area. And of course, I refer to my own talk from yesterday. And then the second thing is that, yes, it is interesting for us to discuss this as techies, but there has been a lot of work already done by social scientists, artists, digital rights activists, and about the ethics and the justice elements and the exploitation and all of that of the digital technology in general, and including specifically the artificial intelligence. So I think we have to refer to that pre-existing knowledge and work with them together.
Alistair Woodman again. So as far as that comment previously about the risk of tort risk, right? I actually think the right answer is that's great, because you can go after these people with very, very large pockets, and hopefully society figures out to sue them down to, you know, smaller size. So I would hope that the AI does not inherently have freedom of speech that a human does, right? And that the thing should actually be held to slightly higher standards. But that's a judicial problem, and we need to focus on those types of things. Not just say, oh, well, we can't find out whose idea it was because there's a bunch of GPUs talking to one another. We'll let it off this time. The answer is, no, we won't let it off this time. End of comment.
Okay, so we're at around a half an hour. Let me try to sort of summarize some of the underlying currents here. And I know it's dangerous because I will definitely exclude someone. One thing is I hear sort of concern / fear about unbridled use of black box systems. Don't put them next to each other. So that's one thing. The others are a little bit sort of disappointing to me personally, that we now discuss it in the most general terms, where sort of I would have liked to have it a bit more concentrated on our particular industry. And coming back to Franziska's question, who is using stuff like this and would it be useful? So maybe we can spend some time on answering her question about who is using things like that, who is considering using AI for sort of operational purposes, and so on, and go a bit more in that direction if that's possible. And I see volunteers.
Thanks, Brian. So I'm personally using it, and I love it basically because I use it to write documentation. It's something that each and every one of us loves doing, right? So not just not for writing like the essence of the document, but for framing the document and then putting into general ideas and letting AI to expand the ideas and to like formulate in a document which has like an introduction and the main part and a conclusion. And it makes life really easier. Especially I have to write sometimes some marketing material, and it's great for marketing materials. I don't know if I can say, but it's like a bullshit generator, you know. So you can tell it, you know, what you need to say, and just frames it, frames what you need to do. And especially I'm not a native English speaker, so it sounds smart sometimes. So. Yeah,
but how much time do you spend correcting it? And have you ever been bitten by sort of untruths that have been written?
Yeah, well, usually give it the right directions, so it's not 100% correct, definitely, but I at least get a draft which I can then correct, and in general I lose lot less time than if I were to write the document from scratch. So that is the biggest advantage, I would say.
Okay. I currently use GitHub Copilot for as a very advanced code completion. Works perfectly. And I use GPT-4 for all things legalese. The rule of thumb would be if it takes less time for you to verify what it returned to you than to write the actual code, do it. Otherwise, never do it.
Okay. Stefan?
One comment.
Carsten, I know you.
Okay, first Carsten. And it's a direct comment to his statement with the marketing material using ChatGPT for this. There's a story that the cloud is not actually accepted in my country. And how do you get your C-level to buy cloud resources? And actually what they did is that the marketing department bought a company called Salesforce, which only runs in the cloud. And then they proved that they have success with it. And then suddenly the company, the C-level, was open to spend more money on these resources because it was a success story. And maybe the same thing can happen with ChatGPT or any similar LLM module we have now.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. Carsten?
Thank you. I just wonder, and that goes into the direction what you just asked the audience on site during the half an hour into the meeting point in time, and that is actually just to see to feel the temperature in the room and to see what people were actually coming from, what they would expect from the BoF in terms of operational questions and using artificial intelligence in operational manners. So possibly like a little tour de table would be helpful. I don't know, just to see what the expectations of the people in the room were. Thank you.
Okay, anybody want to speak to what they expected from this? I'll make it first. I didn't expect much in concrete. No, not. I just expected a frank discussion with high pace, and we got that. Personally, maybe I can also take a turn. It was, I don't know how long ago, Robert helped me, like 4 years ago or so, I went in the research group in the NCC and said, hey, we should probably use machine learning to look at the pile of data we get from RIPE Atlas for basically for anomaly detection. And I got very serious pushback saying, well, that's black magic and we will never know what the causality is, and so on. And my response to that was, at first, I don't care if it just sees an anomaly. We can use our natural intelligence systems to understand it. But we don't have the natural intelligence system to actually look at all the data. So my question is, would that be legitimate? I mean, now in the after 4 years of time passed. Yes, over there.
Hi, I'm Alice, and this is my first RIPE. And well, I just wanted to say for me personally, I'm 19, so I'm quite young, and I personally didn't really talk about any of AI myself. But what I've noticed is that in schools, they stopped giving the children assignment to write them at home because, well, my brother's still in school, so I noticed that way. And now they give the children the assignment to write the essays in school, which is completely bullshit. And then to correct them at home alone without really giving them any feedback because the teachers don't believe that the students would write these texts alone and do them on their own because a lot of students didn't do that. So now the complete school system that worked for about 100 years is completely fucked.
It's quite a perverse outcome, isn't it? Next, Franziska.
No? Yes. First of all, coming back to you, yes, absolutely, you're right. And to comment on what Daniel said, yes and no. It ties to what Robert says before, that we can use AI as a glorified monitoring instance, helping us. We will have prompt engineers working on how to generate the best ChatGPT prompts to retrieve what data we want. But I would highly caution you to use the word anomaly detection, because you are back to one of the most fundamental problems we face in measurement. What do you define an anomaly? Yes, you need to define a normal and expected state first, and we know a little about that in network traffic, but there is so much, especially from vendors and various companies, bullshit out there that will tell you, oh, we do anomaly detection, we tell you everything about your network, except when they don't. And I agree, organizing a large pile of data and pointing interesting points, aspects, points of interest maybe out to an experienced engineer person looking at that. Basically, do the stupid pre-sorting that we can just let the machine do and then apply the human intelligence. Yes, but I think we need to be very careful with wording in these respects, because we saw how fast-paced this technology is developing and where it's used, that we need to make sure that we get the framing also right.
Now I learned something. Thank you. Next.
Daniel, me again. I
Kurt.
would suggest, yes, try it, because anomaly is a very, let's say, flexible term, but still, if you get out insights in your big data with things you have not seen before, maybe it gives you new ideas and new aspects of the things you have not seen before. I think it's worth a try.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
All right. My name is Jonathan. I'm from Coast University. So a little bit from what I was expecting from this BoF. So it seems like a lot of the conversation now is around large language models. And it's been in some discussion about when it's wrong, what it can be good for, and so on. So I would like to hear something like around other AIs in this field, because I can see the large language model as a good first draft when you're developing maybe or writing some kind of documents or documentation, right? It's nice to have a first draft, but you need to be the one who verifies that everything in that is correct and like work on it yourself afterwards. But it can give you a really nice boost in the beginning, getting started on something. But I would like to hear more outside of large language models as well, even though it is the hot topic.
Okay, my reaction to that, and I had some people say this to me as well, is it's very dangerous to use this, at least for me, in my experience, to use this as getting a start, if it's something other than marketing material, because it already defines your direction. So I would be very conscious about that. I would not sort of, when I have to write something substantial, take a draft from someone else, because I know the other guy is biased, or girl, or whatever. The other person is biased, has a direction, and it's not necessarily my direction, and it prevents me from actually thinking about what my direction should be, right? If I have something already. So that's what I'm a little bit concerned about.
Yeah, like it's also all about thinking about what you're gonna do first, and then giving enough context that you feel like it's in the direction that you want it to go, right? You are taking the first step. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so in suggesting to your thing about not being able to do anomaly detection, I mean, that's, I think, relatively obviously nonsense, right? CERN's been doing anomaly detection and found the Higgs boson by looking for needles in haystacks of data, and you get a Nobel Prize for that. So I don't understand why people wouldn't be using these tools. It's just like statistical analysis on steroids. So I confused by anybody who doesn't think you should use the tool for that.
Franziska, you want to respond to that? Can you respond to that? Well, I think, you know, just trying to explain what Franziska said is it's a keyword that's used for a lot of bullshit. So don't use that keyword because you will be associated with the bullshit, right? That's
a little bit. And what I see is that, I mean, you chose an example. I don't have the physics background to like really do that properly, but where we have a fundamental understanding how a normal should look like. And at least if I look at internet-wide collected data, the variation in normal is quite significant. And I see a lot of people claiming stuff very broadly that they can detect things that if you look at them closely, they are not as accurate as I would then want to be if the health of my network would depend on them. This is roughly the ballpark of the problem that I see, that the question is how high your confidence in that is, and the whole anomaly detection business, from how I see it, is evolving very quickly. That's my whole something. What's your trust level there?
Okay, Jörg again here. What I have learned from discussions about these large language models is they are good to be trained for processes and to be giving you a direction where your text that they are generating is going to. So why not use it for processes and contracts? And they might be very helpful in that direction. And we use a lot of contracts in our in the IT business, also in the peering and networking world. So that's why do not use it for automation here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chris?
Chris Buckridge at the RIPE NCC. As often is the case, I'm coming at this from a slightly different perspective, but I wanted to respond a little partly to what the woman at the back mentioned about the sort of restrictions that get put in place. And it's been interesting, in a lot of the work that I'm doing is with policy and with internet governance and digital policy governance, to see in the last 12 months just the incredible ramp up around AI, about, oh my God, this is an issue that we have to do something about, and the kind of fears that are leading to that kind of those kind of restrictions. And so we're seeing this in the case of schools, but we're also seeing it in the case of, you know, the European Commission and the OECD and national governments. So I think for a RIPE community perspective, separate from the sort of technical questions of how we can use AI in this space, there's a real question of, is this a danger moment for governance and sort of top-down government control of the kind of technology that we're interested in, so the internet? Because right now you have a lot of governments seizing this moment and saying, see, here is this technology which clearly presents a lot for us to be afraid of, because we can tell these stories and spin out these narratives of how AI can affect society. There is now a need for us to take over control of this. And I mean, most of what my job at the RIPE NCC has been doing has been saying to governments, no, there is not a need for you to step in and take top-down control of this. This is something the community can handle. So I think as a community, we probably also need to think, how are we going to build this new paradigm of AI into our argument for why community control is so important and so necessary? Thanks.
I am totally surprised that you can speak for exactly 2 minutes. Who was next? Nobody?
I would have a comment maybe on it.
Okay, Stefan.
What interests me most is that we are here in a first world situation again and again and again. You know this story. So is ChatGPT or large language modules something which we let's take the other microphone. That we have the situation that it's a first world problem or first world discussion. What's with other countries? What's with Africa? What's with South America, as an example, Asia? Do they accept it as we do, or is it totally different?
So, speaking about the conference that happened recently, which was the social sciences researchers again having a conference about these large language models in Africa. They have identified that there is again a lot of exploitation and colonialism happening again with the both the labor of the like a cheap labor being used to train these models, and the language is being appropriated from these smaller nations, smaller countries for the benefits of the first world. So indeed, that is a big problem.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Andre, sorry.
Yeah, just to maybe follow up on what Chris said, I think governments are quite eager on sort of ex ante regulation on the presumption that they understand the threats and opportunities well. And well, we know about this case when first cars were introduced, and in Great Britain there was a law that required someone going with a red flag before the car, warning everyone that the car is coming, so the car couldn't make a speed more than 5 kilometers per hour. Well, they didn't have, fortunately, spreading the automotive technology progress. I think we should just relax a little bit and see how those risks and opportunities crystallize before trying to sort of, put a cap on that and sort of try to kill this technology, because we'll not be able to. I think this train has departed already.
Yeah, my reaction to that is of course, this is an age-old kind of argument, which has a lot of truth in it, but it doesn't exonerate us from responsible use. So it's still illegal to race your car through the center of Rotterdam at a speed of 150 miles per hour. Yeah.
With the autonomous systems here, with the cars you mentioned, this experiment with the circle you draw around the self-driving car? Because it's not allowed to drive over a circle, it actually stays in the middle.
Back to Andre, I would, in a sense, I agree with you, because I usually make the argument when people say, oh God, this and that technology takes all the attention of the younger generation. They don't read books anymore. They just do smartphones, whatever. I think there was this article right after public newspapers came up and people could buy them. Oh, people are only reading newspapers. Nobody talks anymore to each other. So I believe in technology positivism, but I think you have the argument with the cars and the technology adaptation has one problem. We are facing now something like exponential growth in technology. So yes, we should lean back and see how it develops, but the time factor is critical. We see the development definitely not counted in years anymore, but in months. And right now, I think the development is kind of limited by the fact how much money which big corporations want to put in. And actually that, I think most of you know that researchers and AI initiatives got together and put a stopper on some of the larger models to continue that. And I think, yes, observing it is smart, but we are on a faster than typical human timescale here, and that's important.
And that causes some of the fear, of course, also. Anybody else? Yeah, we can have AIs that discuss with each other. Yeah. Oh, sci-fi is all over this. I mean, yeah. Are we sort of petering out? Is that a fair question? Okay, I like to be selfish and have a question to the room, and I'd like many people to answer who haven't spoken. Did you get something from this? At least a little bit. Was it useful for you? Sorry, you see, so my own clock stops me now. Anybody want to speak to that? I see people nodding, but. Yeah.
It's me. Yeah. This is a very superficial comment, but I'm reminded of the problem. If Daniel gave me the other microphone, you'd find it immediately. The thing is, if you don't measure what's coming out and decide whether it's useful or not, decide what its value is, decide what its cost is, it's like trying to build a control system without having a cost function or without having a closed loop. So it's back to what somebody taught me when I was not yet 20. It's all about the eigenvalues. But that's nothing to do with what the technology is. It's the same problem. So we have to look, and I don't know where the responsibility gets injected, but if we are trying to use this for driving our networks, we have to look at the effects and see if it works. If we're trying to use it for generating legislation, we know that legislators don't understand eigenvalues anyway. So we have a different kind of risk. And I don't know how to do those risk assessments. So I'll stop making superficial comments.
Okay. Wasn't very superficial. Anybody else?
Yeah, hi. So I've been looking a lot of Rob Miles videos lately. I don't know if you guys know this guy from YouTube. I think he presents the topics and especially security aspects very well. But another thing I read in another article was basically the need for the skills that we and especially our children will need one day. So today, like Alice was also referring to this, right? They write essays and something, and that's cool. And then we see AI, which can do this much better. So what do the kids need to learn instead? And another parallel I see, for instance, is just like kids become more and more good at using computers, but it appears that there are less and less that are there to actually write new software. And the same with these AI systems. I guess people need, the future generations in particular, need different set of skills to police them, like you were saying there. How do you assess them with the negative eigenvalues, or hopefully negative? But you need more philosophy and those kinds of things that need to be taught in school now, because maths will probably be the very first thing to be gone completely and like done by computers. So, you know, what do you teach them instead, and what skills are needed to still stay on top of these technologies? Also, just a very superficial comment.
Okay, I'll bite. You know, as somebody who has studied a little bit of math, yes, calculations are probably going to be automated and very simple derivations. But I think sort of originality I haven't yet seen coming out of things, because then we would have AI systems that really win Nobel Prizes. So they will. Okay, you say they will. Okay, good. Stefan?
What we, I think, not really talked about is that AI systems or large language models are actually could be good teachers, because they can repeat, they can maybe adapt better to the learning skills, the learning speed of people in general. It has to be proved. Can be totally wrong here.
Time to go to the reception, to the pub. Well, thanks for everyone who participated. I hope it gave these people some food for thought, and let's call it a day.